Ever after, Prince Not So Charming. Kingdom histories? Wow, Amber, I didn't think we'd have to learn this at Everrealm Academy, Sophia said with a sigh. She and Amber were walking out of school, heading for their coach. Amber gave a confident smirk as she replied, "Well, of course we do, Sophia. To help get along with and work well with other kingdoms, we have to understand their heritage to show our appreciation." There were 138 kingdoms, though. To Amber, all it meant was more ways to prove herself. To Sophia, it seemed way too much for 13 and 14-year-olds to memorize so quickly. Just take and keep your notes. That way, in the future, you have it right there and do not need to rely on memory, a British voice said from behind them. Sophia automatically flinched. She and Amber turned around to see Prince Corin, a prince who they met at Everrealm. "He's right, Sophia," Amber added. Amber went up and stroked Corin's chest with a slight smirk as she finished. "After all, he's from the kingdom of Romantia. They're the kingdom with the most trading partners. After Enchantia, of course," Corin replied with a wink. Sophia nodded and thanked them both. She would definitely put their advice to use. Sophia and Amber's coach then arrived. Corin bowed and said how he'd see them both at school tomorrow. On the ride home, Amber let out a large sigh. "Everything okay, Amber?" Sophia questioned. "Better than okay, Sophia. Isn't Prince Corin just the finest? He's also the most handsome prince at school. I think he was trying to flirt with me," Amber answered. Sophia nervously laughed as she replied, "Yeah, he's pretty great, Amber." After all, every female at school adored him. He was the most popular prince there. Amber then announced how she was going to invite him to their group's next get-together, making Sophia cry, "Wait, what?" "Oh, relax, Sophia. It's not like a date or anything since the rest of you will be there," Amber said. She then chuckled and mumbled to herself, "But hopefully it leads to one." Sophia knew right away to talk to Hugo for advice. There was nothing wrong with Corin, but they had both promised back on the sailing trip to help Desmond get together with Amber. This would certainly be a bump in the road. At Hugo's palace that evening, Sophia explained to him everything. Hugo gave a small laugh as he went, "Sophia, it's easy. We just have to make him not like Amber, or vice versa." "But everyone likes Amber, and Corin is practically the most perfect prince." Sophia noticed what she had just said, as well as Hugo's sudden glare, making her add, "After you, of course." Hugo began to ponder. He brought up how their next get-together was to watch James's test at Chivalry Hall, to see if he could rank up to the next class. Nothing romantic could possibly happen at an event like that. Sophia nodded in response, then instantly sighed. She then told Hugo, "But we all have dinner at our castle afterwards. Dinner equals date." Pretty sure 8 random people, including 3 siblings, doesn't make her and Corin on a date, Hugo said. He began to chuckle as he added, "Especially since James won't have a date. Shocker." Hugo had a point. Corin definitely couldn't hit on Amber with 6 different people there as well. Everything should be completely fine. However, at the Night Academy, everyone was super eager to meet Corin. Everyone met outside of the Coliseum. Hildegard instantly came up to her friend going, "Wow, Amber, this new man of yours is quite an upgrade from who I thought you'd be with. Nice choice, I approve." Hearing this, Desmond instantly turned the other direction. Hildegard was referring to him, wasn't she? The prince instantly headed inside and went to find his seat on top of the arena walls as everyone chatted with Corin. The further away, the better. So, this is your brother's night test. How amusing. You Enchantians really are the perfect family, Corin said as he walked Amber to her seat. Amber gave a flirtatious giggle as she replied, "And you Romantians are certainly romantic." Xandar and Hildegard sat to their left. Xandar instantly was enthused. This was just another cool prince to add to their crew. "Yes, I am flattered to be here. I now see why Amber spends so much time with all of you," Corin told them. Amber clung to his arm. She looked towards Sophia and Hugo, who were in the row behind them. "Isn't Corin's accent just so charming? It makes you want to listen to every word." "Yeah, it's really nice, Amber," Sophia awkwardly answered. All of a sudden, trumpets and horns blew. Sophia jumped out of her seat as she cried, "Look! Here comes James!" She pointed down into the arena, where several teenagers on horses came in from the gates. "I sure hope he passes this test." The arena floor was set up with a large derby obstacle course, a jousting section, and around the edge was what looked like a track. "Oh, this must be the horse riding test," Desmond realized. Hildegard questioned what that meant, making Desmond answer, "Well, you know how lots of knights ride horses and do lots of stuff on them? This is the test to see how well they are at all the stuff that requires a horse." James was on the derby team back in RPA, so they all knew he would be able to do super well on this test. They all looked back down into the arena, where all the class was lining up in alphabetical order. As soon as James's name was called, his family and friends instantly cheered. James looked up into the stands above the wall and gave a large smile and waved back until he realized he had to be professional. He automatically sat up and gave a straight face as Sir Daniel walked by, introducing the next participant. A gentle smile returned, though, once Sir Daniel had passed. Once all of the commotion had toned down, Corin turned and said to Amber, "That is your brother, I'm assuming. He is indeed exactly how you described him. Except for one detail. He doesn't seem to look like your twin, because you are far more fetching than he is." "Oh my goodness, I have always thought that too," Amber responded with a giggle. Hildegard quickly nudged Xandar, making him go, "Ow! But no royal is as irresistible as Hildegard, that's for sure. Sorry, Corin." "Dude, this isn't a competition. Can't we all agree that these princesses dazzle us all? We all have things we love about our certain woman," Hugo added. Sophia was in awe. She leaned and gave him a simple kiss. She then hugged him afterwards, and Hugo whispered, "And that, my friends, is how you woo a princess." During all of this, Desmond just simply watched and sighed. It was as if he weren't visible. However, being invisible is one of the things that gave him hopes with Amber in the first place. Being invisible until he was revealed, and then danced with her in the middle of the night in an enchanted pavilion. But now, what was the point? There was no way magic could remove this metaphorical invisibility cloak. Amber's eyes were set on Corin, and that was that. Hugo has had Sophia for a few years. Xandar was winning Hildy over, and Corin now had Amber in his hands. A few minutes later, James was starting his jousting portion of the test. He held the stick firmly as he prepared to flick his reins. The gong had then rung, and James rushed towards his opponent. If he had not been wearing a helmet, his blonde hair would have been flowing behind him. He then knocked his lance into his opponent's armor, causing them to wobble and fall off their horse. "And that's a pass on Prince James's end," Sir Daniel announced. The crowd cheered as James dismounted his horse and bowed. He then quickly shook it off and saluted instead. James walked over to help up his opponent and told him, "Nice run, Jackson. I know you'll knock the next person off. You're great at this." As jousting events continued, Amber knew it was the perfect time to go introduce Corin to James, since he had already passed that portion and was free until the next set of events. It was found difficult though, as there were no open entrances into the arena. There was, however, a gate Amber managed to find and be able to talk to James through. "Well, lad, congrats on the first round of tests. I see what Amber has said about everyone here is very true," Corin told James. "Thanks, man." "Wait, who are you?" James replied. Amber then introduced them to each other. James quickly grew fond of Amber's new friend she had brought. "Wow, Amber, he is like the nicest and coolest prince ever," James told his sister. Up in the stands, Hugo and Sophia could tell something was up with their friend Desmond. "Hey Des, you okay?" Sophia asked as she and Hugo came and sat by him.
"Oh, yeah, Corin's the best. I can't say one bad thing about him," Desmond answered. He then gave a grumpy pout as he added, "Which is why I hate him. There's nothing wrong with him, and that just means he's perfect for Amber, since she is perfect too." Hugo chuckled for a small second as he mumbled, "Amber? Perfect? Yeah, okay." Sophia shot her boyfriend a glare, then looked back towards her friend.
"Don't worry, Desmond. Corin might be who Amber likes now, but that doesn't mean he's the one, right?" she said. Hugo nodded in response before going, "Yeah, I mean, Amber and I liked each other for a while too, but now I have Sophia and could not be happier." He then paused for a bit and awkwardly finished, "Okay, probably a bad idea to mention that I almost dated her too. And it's weird that I've practically dated two girls who are actually sisters." Desmond then broken-heartedly told them, "I mean, it's just hard seeing the person you've liked for so long be interested in someone else, especially when it feels like she has liked every single prince except me. But I've known for so long how amazing she is." 8 years ago. "Hey Amber, have you ever noticed this swing?" 6-year-old James said out at recess. His twin came and studied the swing, which actually had wings. "No, not yet. I guess I hadn't been to this part of the playground before," she answered. Amber and other princesses had been spending recess the first 2 weeks sharing princess tips they had learned before school. She never really thought about running around and playing. That seemed too much like a boy thing. Well, other than that one prince she noticed would always sit on a bench and read during recess. "Well, it swings itself. Try it. The other guys and I found it the other day," James told her. "Having fun without acting like a prince. Sounds perfect," Amber said. She gracefully sat on the magic swing and slowly began to sway. The young Prince Desmond automatically heard the commotion and looked up from his book. He had seen Princess Amber before, but now that her hair was blowing through the breeze and she was giggling, something seemed different. One side of his mouth slowly raised as he saw this. However, he noticed the swing suddenly speed up. Desmond gave a small gasp as he sat his book down and rushed over towards the swing. Next thing he knew, Amber was sent flying through the air. Desmond hesitated for a quick second, but then ran to where he calculated her landing would be and caught her. Almost all the other princes were laughing as James high-fived them. Are you okay, Princess Amber?" Desmond asked as he helped her back to standing. "Oh my goodness, you are my hero," Amber told him. She then automatically turned towards her brother crying, "James, I am so telling Daddy about this."
James laughed a bit more before noticing his sister storming after him, making him run off. Desmond simply stood there, unaware of what he was feeling. His jaw was dropped for a bit, as his eyes continuously flickered. Slowly, a dreamy smile began to form on his face. He had now realized what was different about Amber than before. Present. Then again, later that day she called me Prince Edmund. But I couldn't help what I felt, Desmond finished. Hugo mentioned how he had remembered that prank. Sophia sighed, adding how it was the same one James pulled on her as well. She then smiled and told Desmond how it was a sweet story. They then heard Amber and Corin's voices approaching. Sophia and Hugo returned to their normal seats as Desmond tried to act casual and continue watching the test.
Guess what?
Amber said to Sophia and Hildegard.
James totally approves too. Corin will now be part of our group.
Hildegard smirked as she replied,
Well done, Amber. I say you scored big time.
Overhearing, Desmond commented, Wait, like, forever? Corin turned to the other prince, then answered,
Yeah, man, isn't it great?
Desmond gave a nervous smile and played along, congratulating them both. From then on, they all continued watching James's test. James rode, raced, and coursed through the test. Amber would tell Corin story after story about everyone there, so he would know everyone as if he was always there. And in the end, James was one of the 8 out of 15 students to pass the test. Everyone met back up outside. When James came up to them, everyone was nothing but excited and cheery.
Woo, James! We all knew you could do it!
Sophia cried as she rushed to hug her brother.
Yes, well done, lad,
Corin said as he shook James's hand. The whole gang was filled with pep. Amber stepped in saying,
And I'm having the chefs prepare a special dinner in celebration.
Well, what are we waiting for? I'm starving, James said. Xandar laughed in response, and the two of them rushed to their coaches. Sophia added in a giggle, thinking how those two boys will never change. Two crazy best friends? Joy and goofiness was inevitable. Hildegard rolled her eyes, though, pointing out how Xandar shouldn't rush off without her. Corin escorted Amber to their carriage and opened the door.
After you, milady,
he said with a bow. Amber curtsied and stepped in the coach. They looked back at the others, and Corin turned to Amber, chuckling a bit, and asked if get-togethers were always like this.
Pretty much. Other than the fact I now have a handsome prince smothering me,
she answered with a flirtatious laugh. Hugo raised an eyebrow and whispered to his partner, She realizes Desmond does that and maybe even more every get-together, right?
Apparently not.
Now back in Enchantia, everyone was gathered together in the dining hall. Everyone was so thrilled that it was hard to talk to anyone other than the person next to you.
Hey James, check this out,
Xandar said as he arranged his food to look like a horse. James laughed along, then poured some popping candy into his tea, making it burst into the air like a fountain. Him and Xandar continued to laugh.
This is quite a remarkable evening. Allow me to try, gentlemen,
Corin said as he began to swirl his soup around so fast that you could see through the middle. Everyone at the table was laughing and having a delectable time. Desmond noticed Amber was missing her usual 3rd sugar cube in her teacup and went,
Oh, Amber, I'll get another sugar cube for you.
He began to reach for the small plate of cubes, but Corin cut in going,
Don't worry, my friend, I can reach them.
Corin then passed the plate to Amber and followed with,
Here you go, ma'am. 1 more sugar cube, which I'm told is your regular.
Amber giggled once again and thanked him, while Desmond sat with a blank face. "Oh, he is such a gentleman," Hildegard commented. Amber looked towards her friend and instantly agreed. "You made sure they're prepping Jiggly Wiggly pudding, right, Amber?" James exclaimed. "Yes. In fact, I'm going to go check and see when it will be ready," the blonde princess said as she stood up and walked to the kitchen. Once Amber had left, Desmond turned to Corin and went, "So, how are things going with Amber? It sure seems like you two are having a great time." "Yeah, about that, we need to talk," Corin replied. Desmond seemed confused at first, until Corin added, "Man to man, or rather, man to boy. I think it is pretty obvious you have feelings for Amber as well." Desmond began to sweat as he replied, "What? Me? Feelings for Amber? No way." Corin chuckled a bit before going, "Amber has told me many stories. It is quite clear, based on how you act and what she has told me, that you like her. I almost feel bad for you. After all, she won't see you as more than the cowardly nerd." Desmond's heart began to sink. In this process, Hildegard took a sip of her tea. She followed with a smirk and went, "Well, I didn't realize dinner came with the show." Corin sat his teacup down and continued, "So, my friend, I just want you to have real expectations. Maybe find someone who is actually on your level, and keep your distance from Amber. Sound good? Great." "But I thought I was supposed to be Amber's hero," Desmond commented. "Yes, well, I'm afraid that position has been delivered into my hands. If Amber cannot even tell that you have feelings for her, why bother going for it? Just let me take the reins, okay?" Corin finished. Desmond gave a large sigh before exiting the room. "Desmond, wait!" Sophia called out to her friend. She then instantly turned to the redhead, going, "That wasn't very nice, Corin." The prince shrugged as he explained how he was just trying to help Desmond have realistic expectations and guiding him the proper way. All of a sudden, a voice came in saying, "I just checked and they're almost finished with the pudding." Amber noticed the drastic awkward silence compared to when she left. "What's going on?" she asked. Hugo, James, and Xandar instantly pointed to Corin. "I did not do anything wrong," Corin opposed. He went on to explain that he was trying to get Desmond to back off of Amber. "Back off of me? Corin, Desmond does not like me like that. We've just been friends since we were kids," Amber assured. The conversation continued until Amber became quite annoyed with Corin, especially after he told them that it doesn't matter whether or not it was Amber. He could still get any princess in that room to choose him over who they were currently with. Everyone else grew defensive too, except James, who joked that it was a good thing that he didn't have a princess for him to steal. Corin clarified that he wasn't trying to steal anyone. He was just trying to be with the princess that had caught his eye since the first day of school. "Yes, well, I think now it's time that I release your eye. I think you should go, Corin," Amber insisted. A bit later, she went to find Desmond. Bailiwick told her that he was up in the observatory. Amber thanked her steward as she made her way to the elevator. Just as Bailiwick said, Desmond was sitting on the floor. He was in the exact spot that he and Amber were at when they discovered their own constellation. Amber smiled as she approached him. "Want some company?" she asked. Desmond wiped away a tear with his hanky before she could see it. "I sometimes come up here when I'm upset too. Just staring at the stars really makes you feel like you're in your own space," Amber told him. She then giggled as she added, "No pun intended." "Well, I'm happy you still get to be with Corin," Desmond said. "Actually," Amber began. Desmond looked over at her as she finished. "I made him go home. If he was already upsetting my best friends and siblings after less than a day, I couldn't have him around." "Oh, I'm really sorry about that, Amber," Desmond replied. Amber chuckled for a quick second before she responded, "It's no worries. I mean, he was obsessed with this crazy idea that you have feelings for me. Jealous much?" "What? No. We're friends. No way I like you like that," Desmond said, trying hard to keep a straight face. "I know, right?" Amber laughed. She then calmed down a bit and continued, "I'm just glad to see that everything is okay now." Desmond and Amber both looked up towards the stars. At the same time, they noticed the tiara. They both had always loved astronomy, discovered a constellation that always connects them to each other, and it was a beautiful night. Desmond finally had a smile return to his face. He looked back at Amber and nervously went, "Amber, what if I did have feelings for you?" "What do you mean?" Desmond took a deep breath, then told her, "Well, ever since we were kids at Royal Prep, I still remember you calling me your hero. From that moment on, you've been the only princess to ever captivate me. I've done everything I can to continue being your hero. I was there whenever you needed me, and would do anything you requested. And, well, you're Princess Amber of Enchantia. Any prince would be a fool not to see what I see in you. I always believed you were out of my league because you're perfect and I'm, well, me. So, yeah, Corin was right. I actually do have feelings for you." A caring smile grew on Amber's face. "Desmond, do you really mean that?" Desmond's smile grew as well. He began to blush as he answered, "Yeah, I do." I never knew," Amber said. She reached and grabbed Desmond's hand and concluded, "But I'm glad I know now. We all thought that Corin was the perfect gentleman. But you know what? The perfect gentleman was right beside us this whole time. You." Amber leaned in to give Desmond a tight hug. Slowly, the two loosened up and looked down until they were leaning their foreheads against each other's. They closed their eyes, and eventually their jawlines were on the same level. "I just wish you would have told me sooner," Amber whispered. "Me too," Desmond muttered back as he leaned in a bit further. And before they knew it, they ended their day with a long kiss under the starry sky.